do a little bit of a walkthrough of how far you've gotten on controlling your steering digitally?
Okay. And so basically, that's the kind of make it work solution. Sometimes you get into that mode where you just want to make it work. And basically, I'm just replicating that end. So this will mount down in there, and I have control of the steering. So now I'm moving over to the teensy and got control of the linear actuator, and then getting control of the servo.
I'm done.
That's about it. That's where it is. So I tried to start from scratch and put the new Ubiquiti build on the Raspberry Pi, and then just kind of going through the steps of bringing up the teensy and then getting that all wired.
And you're doing that with 12 volts?
Yes, I am. I do have the option of 24, but I have only tested with 12.
Did you happen to time, hard left to hard right? How much time?
Not yet, because I had to turn like a little knob. So I'll have once I have it under digital control, I can send in commands from the computer and get a better estimate of lock to lock time.
Oh, that's right. You were using an analog potentiometer to deliver the signal. And I think you and I spoke offline where you believe you're using 300 degrees of a 340-degree swing or something like that?
Right around there. That's an estimate, not a measurement.
Yeah, but it's a fair amount, because what I was trying to get at is how many ticks, so to speak, we're liable to get out of that servo.
Yeah, I would like to measure the angle and see kind of lock to lock what that looks like, and then.
And on these servos, mine arrived in the mail this week as well, but I haven't really tested it. Any idea the repeatability of the servo's potentiometer? I mean, so if you give it, 2040, is it going to come back to the same spot every time?
Yeah, pretty much.
So you've been pretty happy with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I even got a servo for the throttle. I'd like to test that.
And then Jeff, you might have an opinion or point of view, but Matt and I were brainstorming what's the way to protect the servo from, hitting an unintended object with the front steering wheel, right? So if it hits an object, it's going to deliver force to that shaft, and that shaft's going to deliver force to the servo, which is not really designed to absorb a bunch of shock. One solution we were thinking of is, Matt, if you can hold up your servo again, to have like an outer shaft that's connected to the servo and an inner shaft that slides into that, and a couple of pins that you drill that could sacrifice themselves if you got some unintended object. I don't know what you thought about that design, or if you had any other thoughts on how do you protect the servo from unintended force coming up from the steering tire.
Well, on that note, if you hold that servo up again, you notice that say something so it switches the video here.
Okay. Yeah. Did it work? Not
so
yet.
You notice that plate that's on there, and it's held on with a set screw or something. You could just take that set screw out and drill through that plate right to the shaft. So you've already got what you need there. You just need to take the set screw out of that thing that's screwed on there and just put a pin right through there. If that makes sense.
I see. So this is a part that would break.
Yeah.
That pin inside of there. Yeah. I see.
Now in the radio control world, they have something called a servo saver. and it's just it's like a clutch or something that you put on to your servo, so it's like a friction disc, I think is what it is. So if you could come up with something like that where it takes a large amount of force to get that to break loose, but then it recovers. It's not, you're not actually going to twist off a pin or something. Now, to get one for something that big, I don't know if somebody has it. You might be able to search for that and see. And go to somewhere like, what's that called, servoworld.com, something, Servo Town? Servo City. Go to servocity.com and look at their stuff. They might have give you some ideas, or if you just search for your Super 200 and Servo Saver, maybe somebody's got something that will do that. Otherwise, you could somehow mount the entire servo so it could break loose if something happens. And I'm not sure how you would do that, but maybe put some kind of rubber mounting or something that would pop out if you force it too hard. Or the best solution is don't run into stuff. That would
Yeah.
Oh, Jeff, how
As always.
the simple solution.
Kyler doesn't put on sensors and he runs into stuff, but just put some sensors on there and don't run into stuff.
Yep.
I can solve a lot of problems. I don't know how much force or how much abuse you can put on a servo like that. It's probably got metal gears in it, so it's probably going to hold up better than the little ones that have plastic gears. But I don't know. In order to test it, you're going to risk destroying your $80 servo. So you just put something on, hope it's going to work. So as far as putting a pin through there, I don't know what you use for a pin. Can you get like an aluminum pin or something? That might be something. A piece of aluminum wire, maybe.
Yeah, that was the thinking. Some soft metal thing, or maybe even plastic, depending on how much torque was required.
Yeah. I suppose just put something in there and try it, and if that breaks off just during normal operation, you have to get something stronger than that. But you just have to decide, if you're going to give a demo on something, do you want to risk that thing breaking off spontaneously for no reason? So I suppose you could drive it for a while and then pop the pin out to look to see if it's started cutting into it. And that would give you an idea if it's, how well it's going to hold up over time. And I suppose the other thing you could do is put a spring, lift the servo up and put a spring between the servo and the gear you're trying to turn, so you got some kind of spring compliance, like a rotary spring, whatever you call that. So as a twist, the servo's turning against the tension of the spring, which turns the gear, and that way, if it's loaded and can't turn, then the spring's gonna take up the shock rather than the gears. So that might be another approach, but it's going to take more room to add that. And
yeah.
Other than that, right offhand, I can't think of anything really to do there.
Those are all really good suggestions. Thanks for that.
Yep.
But it does seem like the shear pin is probably the easiest and quickest. In fact, right now you can just drill a hole through there and put a pin through and take the set screw out and go ahead and run it like that. That way you don't have to refabricate anything to try that out.
Well, Matt, hold up your shaft, your aftermarket shaft that you bought. Because the thought occurs to me, if you say something, Matt, so the video goes back to you.
Hello, this is the shaft.
Yeah. And then hold up your servo, the connecting plate between the servo shaft. I mean, literally, if you welded a small circle with 3 holes in it on the shaft, cut the shaft off at whatever that is, 3 inches. Weld a plate to the shaft with, 2 or 3 or 4 holes, and use that to mount to the other plate that's provided by the super servo. Whatever you put in those holes, the 3 or 4 holes that you drill, are going to become the, potentially the shearing point. So that would be another option as well. Because I like the idea of being able to go buy a $35 shaft and, weld a circular plate to that, because a lot of places you'd be able to get that done, right? And drill 3 holes in it. See what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah, this part here is what we need. Yeah, exactly. This is the same thought with using the power steering unit. I was going to cut it right here and then put a coupler in there in between the power steering unit, and then just drive that piece.
Right.
But it's kind of making this piece is kind of tricky.
Yeah, I mean, and the issue with tolerance is getting that mounting bracket welded in the right place and centered so that it delivers a centered force to the steering gear. Oh, we need a good fabricator.
Didn't you say you can buy a replacement shaft for like $35 for that?
Yep.
That might be the quickest. Just buy a replacement shaft and cut it off to wherever you want. So rather than trying to put it in a lathe and make the end look like that of a regular piece of metal.
Agree.
And then I was thinking, how do we get that mounted? How do we drive then that shaft, right? And I'm thinking, you take a 2-inch circular piece of metal and weld it to the shaft that you've cut off, and then mount that plate to the plate that comes from the servo guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, I can visualize what you're saying. Colin posted a note saying, is there any connection for the meeting today? And I just posted the link for the normal link to this Zoom. So he hasn't signed on yet, so I don't know what he's doing. He put that in the Lawntractor. Yeah, the Lawntractor one on Slack. So I just posted the link that I use. So.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
But he hasn't logged in yet, so I don't know what he's doing. Well, we'll see. Yeah, as far as connecting those together, I think there's various things you could do there to somehow you have to attach to the flat plate of the servo, and if you say as Al just pointed out, if you make a flat plate and then weld a coupling onto there for your cutoff shaft to go into, then you can either put the brake pin through there or put the brake pin through the piece that's right on the servo. So you got 2 options there, or you could do it in both places, just if that makes more sense. I found that you want to make if you're making couplings like that, make them long enough that it's going to keep the thing centered in there, because I had my first motor that I put on my mini tractor, the shaft didn't go into the coupling far enough, and I'd tighten down the set screw, but it still would work its way loose. So if you can go all the way through there, just the longer the shaft is in contact, the better off you are. So make it at least 1 inch long, and maybe 2 inches long if you can, for your shaft to go into.
Okay. One thought was to remove this mounting plate here, and then just get an attach directly to this shaft.
And have you ever seen any couplings that meet the diameter and the configuration on that servo?
Yes. There's just a little bit of trickery to get that end. It's the end piece. So you can find couplers that fit this shaft that have a set screw. Those are pretty common. And then connecting to that piece.
Tell me where you've seen those shafts or those couplers.
Just everywhere, hardware stores.
What's the diameter of that shaft?
I think it's 10 millimeters.
So it's just a matter of searching for a 10 millimeter coupling then.
With it's what do they call it when they cut off the edge there? I've forgotten. Where the set screw tightens down on.
They call it flatted or a D shaft, I think is what the common terms are. Which is, the shaft on the servo already has that cut off. It's just that Then when you put it on, you put the set screw against the flat spot.
The other thing I was just going to walk through, hey, that's really cool.
There we go.
I don't think Matt saw that. Matt,
I
look up.
didn't see it.
That's okay. We'll try it
Look
again
at
here.
that.
I was going to switch the mic. Somebody's, oh, there we go. There.
I see it. Yeah. It's all about placement. Product placement. Are you guys picking up the Ross t-shirts?
I have not.
You know, they come out about 2 years before the software is released, so you gotta buy them and wait.
That's early releasing. I was going to, let's see, just share briefly where we're at in documenting some of the steps. So in the G drive, we've got, as you can see there, about 6 files. One is the milestone plan. These first couple of steps, you know, I've been through twice, you know, once to write them and the second time to test them. So that's ready for review if anybody cares to start from the beginning and craft, you know, do their build on their machine. Colin, it looks like you've started to join, but I'm not sure if you can hear us or not. Can you hear us? Colin, are you there?
I can see him now.
Colin, we're getting video. Can you hear us?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can
Yes.
hear you.
You can or cannot?
I can hear you. I am hearing you.
Okay, good. We can hear you as well, loud and clear.
So why did you forget me today?
I'm not. Tell me how you want to be communicated with, because it certainly wasn't our intent to forget you.
This is just simply a scheduled meeting once a week. So at the same time, just click on that link to get in. So he doesn't send out invitations each time.
Well, actually, I thought when I sent out,
where am I supposed to click?
The one that just says meet.rossa.org, which puts you into the Zoom. The same one you use on Tuesday nights to start up your Zoom channel.
Oh, the same one I use on Tuesday night.
Yes.
It's okay. It's okay. Forgive my ignorance.
well, I actually thought when I sent out the original meeting invite, it was a reoccurring meeting that occurred every Friday. Is that not how it showed up in your calendar?
I didn't know how to apply that to my calendar. So I manually added it to my Windows calendar or whatever. So
Because it's no big deal to send out another
Well,
invite. I had just thought I'd sent out a recurring meeting invite.
the Tuesday one, I have it linked to my files. So I just click in my files and I go and attend the meeting. I didn't know it was the same area. It's okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, probably my issue in that I assumed that the recurring meeting would show up. And I happen to use Windows Outlook to send the meeting notice out, so maybe it's just not playing very nice with the systems that you're using. So back to this. So in the milestone plan, we have, the number of steps, and these will, I think, bear with us, but I think these will get adjusted over time, but certainly the first few we're pretty strong on. The installation or the guides that are in the folder as well are focused on these first two things. Matt and I have talked about doing these, but he's challenged me to learn Docker and try to use Docker to install these. So he's got more faith in my technical abilities maybe than is deserved, but we'll see how I go with that this weekend. Let me just ask, Colin or Jeff, any progress on either of these two steps? Do you want me to capture your status here, or just leave it blank?
I basically have gone through these things, so I guess as far as the first two steps, I've done that. I have done that before.
I attempted it, but unsuccessfully. I managed to locate a document of the steps we are supposed to follow. So I'll try again. I downloaded the Ubuntu. Then I realized that there were two versions that we were supposed to select from. The other one was the latest version. The other one was the 16.04, I think. So I didn't go beyond that. I needed to know which of the two I was going to pick. When I went through the documentation you sent, or that was put on the website, I realized I should have picked the 16.04. So I'll attempt again after this meeting.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, and then again, Colin, you're going to add real value by going through this and asking the questions that you do, because if there's something unclear in the instructions, then that needs. I'm going to take that as a fault of the instructions. So you are helping us if you point out things that are unclear or confusing. But yes, definitely you went 1604. I was sort of hoping 1804, which is the current version, would work, but it doesn't. So you'll definitely be happier if you use 1604.
I think the 1804 doesn't seem to have much support as the 1604 at this stage.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The 1804 does not appear to have much support as the 1604 in terms of connectivity. It would appear 1604 would be much easier to connect than the 1804.
Agree completely. So give that a go, and if if there's confusing things, if things could be more clear, please let me know.
If I use these, do you hear me clearly? Any change?
None whatsoever. Like you're not even talking through your headset.
Oh my God! All right.
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. It's like you didn't change.
All right, it's okay.
So anyway, those two.
Yeah. So this is.
Go ahead.
This is the document that I'm following. I've printed it here,
Awesome.
and I'm trying to follow that to install.
Okay, cool. The other one that's in here is around, taking that laptop and using it to run TurtleSim, which will show up. The turtle color will be a little bit different than the instructions. I might want to note that because Matt tells me the turtle color changes every time you run it. But yeah, it's about driving that turtle around and then getting the joystick to work as well. So So help us out. Try the instructions. Tell us if it needs to be improved somehow.
I will. Thank you.
I also, there's a couple of other things in here, but these have not been edited fully, and I'll say put in production mode. Maybe there's something I should put in the title about draft, but those are not yet done. And then I can see, Matt, you put the wiring diagram of the Lawntractor in there as well.
Yeah, I didn't know how closely that would match other systems.
Yeah, I've got that diagram. I'm not sure whether that will match with mine.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it's a sample.
Yeah, I thought it was good that you put that in there.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'll try to see where it is.
And the other thing I thought was worthy of note is Jim has added a little bit more detail to his bill of material. He has some photographs that he's taken and put into the bill of material. On mine, I just started to edit this a little bit. So if you care to share what your bill of material looks like, I mean, you've got a couple of examples here to follow. And that's what I wanted to cover about the milestone plan and the documentation that we've crafted so far. Again, the next steps are, Matt suggested I try to do some of the documentation with a tool called Docker, which would ultimately make it easier for folks. So I don't know, Jeff or Colin, if you've ever used that, but
I have never used Docker.
yeah, so the hope is that it will make it easier, and hopefully by the close of the weekend I'll have something to share that steps into that. Matt, you want to talk about your next steps?
Sure. So right now the next step is wiring up the teensy. So for the throttle control. On the linear actuator, I don't have a potentiometer, so I don't know how far the actuator is moving. There is a reverse switch on the lawnmower, so whenever you're going into reverse, you'll get a signal back. And so I'm going to use that as one position controller. So I'll know I need to get it back to 0. So on the way this works, you pull that lever forward, you go forward, you push the lever back, it goes in reverse, and then it's center. It doesn't move. And then I am hooking up the wheel encoder. So when I move the linear actuator to engage the transmission, I can count how fast it's going. So the two things I'm working on is hooking up the wheel encoders and then getting in the signal from that switch that's on the lawnmower. There you go. Look at that.
I found one of these. I think it's smaller than the one you've got. This one's about 1/4 inch diameter, and yours is quite large, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this maybe it would give you more resolution. You know, if you go to a smaller sprocket or cut your own wheel. And these are on sale for like $1.62 or something. I can post the link to that if I can find it here quickly.
Yeah, that'd be great. Matt, you got yours at Tractor Supply?
Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah, I need to test that. I haven't tested it fully on there, so I need to get that wired up and make sure it works. I don't know how far or how tight that resolution is off of those gears, you know, like how sensitive it is if I push it down and push it away. So I need to test that.
The other thing to check is see how fast you can turn it, because it could be if you turn fast enough, it's going to quit responding.
It'll just stay open or on all the time.
Yeah, either
Yep.
on or off, either way. So, and then the other thing to consider is if it looks like it's all going to work okay, you might consider putting a second sensor on there so you can get actual quadrature off there. So you just have to mount it somewhere that when you pick up the signal, it's going to be 90 degrees out of phase. So you can mount it, 2 or 3 teeth away. It's just that you have to be able to adjust it a little bit. So if you watch it on a scope, you get 2 square waves that, basically one lines up like this, one lines up kind of overlapping like this. I can probably find a picture of that somewhere. But so when you get that far, you probably want to look into that. And that way it'll keep track of, it can tell you which direction you're going by doing that. So when you come to a complete stop, if you start wiggling back and forth, what you have right now will just think you're moving forward all the time. But if it can detect the direction, then if you rock forward and then rock back, it counts up and counts down. So it'll keep track of that. So that's just something to consider in the future on that.
Good point.
Let's see. Email specials.
Yeah, but a smaller one would be probably, hopefully for our situation, a little bit better.
$2 is a really great deal.
As long as it works.
Yeah.
And this company they're kind of like a surplus company, or they got lots of stuff, and they have a flat rate $6.95 shipping. So once you decide to order one thing for $2, you have to get enough stuff to make up for your shipping. So I thought there's a whole list of these here.
You have no idea how much shipping cost I got to pay. Matt sent me a website where I could get a commit kit to do a project. It's a 4-wheeled tractor or 4-wheeled vehicle. It was going for $66. I placed an order and paid through Amazon. The total cost came to $195, including flight.
Wow.
That's pretty staggering.
So flight. There's something that I'm not comfortable with our plan. I don't know whether I should do. The plan doesn't seem to tell me what are the things that I need to be investigating on my own. For example, when I look at what Met is doing, I can't place it on the plan. What is it on the plan that he is working on? Don't we have specific things that the first thing we need to do, the steering, and on the steering, this is what we need to do. The second thing that we need to do is to look at the actuators, whatever. I don't even know what actuators do. I hear them at the meeting when I attend, but I was wondering whether there could be any guide that helps me to look at what are the things I need to be looking at, the blocks of things I need to be looking at, so that when I open my tractor, I know what am I trying to do. Where can I? Is there a website where I can go to get that kind of information?
Well, and
am I out of?
I mean,
Yeah.
the goal is quite honestly to try to make it easy as possible for you. The practical reality is Matt is down here on these sorts of steps. Quite literally, he's got a steering motor. He's installing the steering motor and trying to get it to work, and he's trying to capture odometry. I mean, this is where he's at. we're suggesting, I mean, and we were trying to let Matt go through those steps so he can learn how to do it quickly so that we don't have to go through all of the same pain that he's going through at the moment. So, I mean, you can jump ahead if you want and try to do all these things, or you could try to get these things done.
That's not what I'm looking at. For example, test the navigation stack using RVs on laptop. Get a Raspberry Pi, load the Ubiquity. These are terms I'm not used as to what will we be doing. I know installation is something I got to do. I'm not saying this plan is not reasonable. To you guys, it is. When you look at 10, place order for GPS IMU. I go on websites to look for IMU. I find there are a number of IMUs that are there. I don't know which type of IMU you use to buy that, because the placing of orders can be done regardless of whether you've installed the ROS or not, for convenience of time, so that when you need it, it's already available.
Jeff, can you go on mute?
I don't know whether I'm coming through. What I'm trying to avoid is to come to the meeting and drag the members from making progress. I want to come to the meeting having done enough research of the things that I need to do, and then that research leading me to the tractor, to open the tractor and start working on some sections on the tractor. That's what I'm talking about.
Matt, do you want to comment?
I think that from my perspective, we don't have recommended hardware for you to purchase yet. Like, there are some parts that we feel pretty comfortable about, but as far as recommending, so for example, the GPS IMU system, we'll call that localization, part of localization. I haven't figured out what's a good path forward. Right now, what we're looking at is using the Ag Open GPS. It uses a $200 RTK, and then uses a Tinker Forge, and then uses an inclinometer to measure roll. One thing, so I don't have like a list of hardware to say use this linear actuator, use this. Right now, what we're trying to do is put together a package. And the other thing that makes robots interesting, or this project interesting, is that there is I don't know if you plotted out, precision versus cost graph. A lot of times with technology, the more precise that you get, the more expensive the parts are. And in robots, you can make choices. You can say, I'm going to buy a GPS solution. I'm going to spend $8,000 and I'm going to get a GPS solution that tells me exactly where I am. Well, that takes care of your localization system. It just depends on how much money you want to spend. If you want to go a lower cost, so ideally, I'd like to get this cost down to around $1,000 to automate this lawnmower. So you have to make choices on sensors, what you're going to do. So I'm putting wheel encoders on this unit because 2 reasons. I want a low-cost GPS, like a $35 or a $200 GPS. And the other thing is I want to run in trees where GPSs don't work. So to answer your question, I don't have the recommended hardware to use.
Our suggestion, thanks for that, Matt. Alan, our suggestion is until we know better, these are the steps that we want people to go through, and in this order. I mean, if you're comfortable, you can certainly move ahead and, jump into any one particular step. But our
No,
suggestion is to
no.
go through these.
I think I may have been misunderstood. When I meant GPS and IMU, what I was looking at is if you want to build a vehicle, we need to have wheels, we need to have an engine, we need to have the body, we need to have something like that. That's what I was referring to. So that at least I've got a guide as to what are the things that we are going to look at. I've come across words like localization. When we talk about localization, what are we talking about? Are we talking about IMU? Are we talking about GPS? At least for me to feel a little bit comfortable. I feel so guilty attending this meeting because of the level, my level of what needs to be done. I'm not an engineer, and as a result, things don't click just like that when people talk. There are things that you may take for granted that are for me not as simple. I believe I learn very quickly, but I'm not a technical person. My background is not one of technical. I've been learning programming just for purposes of this, not to go out and look for a job to do programming. I'm older, much older to be doing that. So I need to bring myself to speed to as closely to where you are as possible. So when I ask questions, please forgive me. Do not get agitated or upset that I'm lodging a complaint. Maybe the way I put it across did not come across in such a way as a kind request to be well informed. But how can a person who's not well informed suggest to deviate from a plan that has been put together by at least people who know where we are supposed to go? That's not where I'm coming from. So I take the comments that you make, and I'll follow along.
Yeah, the last thing we want you to do is feel guilty or get frustrated, because we want you to stay a part of the group. Everybody's going to bring their own skill sets and capabilities and ability to contribute differently. And so for the overall exercise to increase, we want to be welcoming and have people of all different capabilities. If I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, I would say there's two potential paths. One is in parallel to try to follow these steps, and also in parallel to do exactly what it sounds like you're doing, self-teaching and self-learning. For me, if I were giving people counsel on how to do self-learning in addition to these steps, it would be to go back to the book that was mentioned in the Slack channel and mentioned last week from Joseph Linton. His books, for me, were extraordinarily useful to learn ROS and to learn what it can do and how it does its thing.
I am using this book.
Perfect. Wonderful. I have that book myself. It's a great tool.
I'll do everything I have to I'm not coming to say, look guys, spoon feed me. This direction is good enough. I'll see how I can go through it, and one day we'll look back and we'll all laugh about all this.
I think that's a healthy way of looking at it, Colin. I don't want to speak on Matt's behalf, but I can certainly speak for myself. We want you to be successful. We think we're trying to make this as easy as possible for people because we know people are going to be coming at it from different skills and capabilities. And so my personal feedback is, if you want to do both, get these steps done and self-learn at the same time, try to do these steps in sequence. And others might have their suggestions. Mine is keep following that book that you've got in your hand, because in my experience, it was a very useful tool to try to get my head around what is ROS and how does it work. And maybe even more importantly, what are some of the things you can do with it? We've got 5 minutes to go before the top of the hour. One takeaway that I'm taking is I will send out a meeting invite every week for the meeting, because I had thought that it was it would naturally show up as a recurring meeting. So I'll put something in the Slack channel as well as send out a meeting notice via email. Matt, any closing comments from your perspective?
Looks great. Yeah, back comment on Colin, the goal is to try to create some learning path or stages where people that are new to ROS can pick it up and practice and learn. So it's excellent that you're participating and learning. There is a whole new terminology to learn with ROS and terminology to learn with robots, so it just takes a little bit of time. One thing that happens, Colin, is 2 years from now, when you're really good at ROS and you know how to automate tractors and everything, then it's hard to put yourself back into the state of mind when you first heard odometry and you're like, what the hell is odometry? So you're right on your path.
I put it at 18 months. 18 months, my tractors must be running in the field.
But Colin's comments bring up the point that we should start a glossary somewhere. So you put down localization, and then you point out, what that is. And the simplest way is you can find a link to somewhere where they're defining it in terms of ROS. And then maybe there's a link that says just in general in robotics, or just in general, what does that mean? Because the term localization is just simply a concept. It says, how do you know where you are in the world? And then you've got all these different things you can throw at it, whether it be GPS or IMU or odometry. So if we had start a glossary somewhere, start writing these things down. So when somebody says they're talking about this, what does that mean? They can go to the glossary and look it up. And they go, oh, okay, now I have a little better understanding what they're talking about constantly. So I don't know if we put that out on the Google Drive or wherever we do that, but just start another, and probably not just for the lawnmower, but for the entire group. Just start a glossary of all this stuff.
What about on the ROS wiki, ROS.org wiki?
I haven't looked there to see what they have, but I'm thinking if we have our own local one that could point to, each entry could point to something, and if it's on the ROS wiki, you can point to that, or point to something on Wikipedia or whatever's appropriate, or we can write up our own little description, little paragraph for each one too, in addition to that. So, we got full flexibility on what to do there.
I see. So you're just linking over to different things. I did find one on quaternions. I don't have a very good math background, but I found a video on quaternions. I listened to it a couple times, and I still don't know what they are.
Yeah, the video is another good thing. Yeah, I don't know what they are either. I just use them when I have to. But also in the definitions, if you link the YouTube videos to everything.
Yeah, guys, can I ask for a favor? If you come across any video, whatever it is, just throw it my way. I found those to be also very useful. Whatever video you come across, if you think it helps, even if there's only 10% of it, I will watch it. It also helps.
The glossary is a great idea. Bringing people up to speed with the terminology, I think, is a big component of just getting your head around ROS and what to do.
And actually, at the top of the glossary, just have a little comment that says, here is the ROS wiki definition of all this stuff. And then down below, we can add in extra stuff that, you know, as anybody comes up with something or asks the question, what is this? What is an IMU? Then you add an entry and put links to YouTube videos and put links to definitions wherever you can find them. So we can just build up from there.
I like that.
Okay, guys. Any closing questions, comments, suggestions? Otherwise, we'll see you on the.
Don't forget to save your chat history if you want to do that. That's also, I noticed at the end of the regular Zoom meetings, I go, oh, I didn't save that. About then, Matt has already clicked on kill the meeting. So,
but we post the chat in the description of the video.
You do, but that's, you know, it's sometime later. If you right afterwards you want to look up something, oh, I didn't save those. So I just saved my chat history.
That's a good tip. I didn't realize that. Yeah, thanks.
Good tip.
And if people don't know what I'm talking about, if you have your chat window open in Zoom, you go down to the bottom where it says more, and you click on that, and it says save chat, and it just writes those links out to your hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, where is it? Where it says save chat?
Do you have your chat?
There is a chat window, right? A chat icon at the bottom. Where is the save button?
Yeah, you click on that one, that icon says chat, and it opens up a window.
Okay.
You should say Zoom chat group. And then down at the bottom, there's a button that says more. If you click on that, the only option is save chat, and then it just writes those out to your hard drive. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. You know, my background is if computers should be making life easy for me, because I lived with computers for years. But when I come to this meeting, I look like I'm starting. Right, okay. Thank you.
So one other comment I'll make, in the chat group there, I posted 2 links to those proximity sensors, and it turns out apparently the sale is off. They're now $4.50 a piece, but they're a smaller diameter than the other ones. And I looked, and I think I paid $2.25 a piece for them, and I must have caught the last of their sale on that. These people put out a weekly sale through the email, and then it's usually good. They're good for like 3 weeks, even though it's a weekly thing. So I think I caught those on the last of their sale. But so that company has lots of parts. And Colin, you should look in your country, try to find local parts instead of getting stuff shipped from all over the world. You know, if you can find something locally, you're going to get much cheaper shipping. So I don't know, when you do a search, you know, put down Zimbabwe and whatever you're searching for, and maybe you can find somebody locally, or, you know, find a country that's close to you, or maybe all your shipping is expensive. I don't know. That wouldn't surprise me.
What I did is last time when I went to South Africa, because there is an annual agricultural show where farmers come and equipment manufacturers will be exhibiting whatever is the latest available on the market. I thought I'd use that time to look for some equipment. What I managed to do was that, unfortunately, I had not read this book that I'll refer, but this book would have directed me at least to get something that is closer to what I'm going to need. I know in the following week, once I get my kit, my other kit that is coming on the 24th, I'm going to be, before I finish the lawnmower, I'm going to start with that little thing that runs around the room. That's the kit that I'm receiving on the 24th. From there, it will be easier to know that if this little boy can run on that thing, that big boy also need to run on that, and upstaging the bits and pieces that causes that little boy to run around. So if I had heard this book by then, I would have been able to know, I would have been knowledgeable enough to ask questions that make sense to the people who sell electronic equipment, not electronic equipment, but electronic spares and gadgets. They were asking me questions. What exactly do you want to do? When I say, well, look, I'm thinking of automating a tractor. To them, they say, what? Why don't you leave those to John Deere? We don't keep stuff like that here. So I realized I was asking the wrong questions, probably to the right people. But now, ever since, my mind is being narrowly focused on the right stuff. That's why I'm saying how, despite what I've said, that list helps me, because I know whatever it is, I'm going to need an IMU, I'm going to need a GPS. I may be talking of a different size GPS, but I know one is going to be needed. So at least this helps to focus me on the right path as to what it is that is going to be required later. So yes, Jeff, you are right. I've already started doing that, especially after, I think Amazon could be more expensive than eBay. I'll probably try to look at these other guys to see what are the costs for these things in those places as well. Because you are asked to select whether it should be shipped from Amazon UK or Amazon States. Surprisingly, Amazon States is cheaper than Amazon UK. All right, thanks. I've seen that. I'll try those guys. Thank you, guys. That's all for me.
I just found those on the web. They do Arduino and RPi, so they have some electronics.
Do you have any idea geographically where they are located? Are they close to this part of the world, or
evidently they're in Zimbabwe someplace. I'm not sure. See the ZW on their
They can't be in Zimbabwe. That's for sure. Anyway, I'll pursue that and find out. Guys, for me, whilst I hear what you say, Matt, that the cost versus whatever, for me, the first project, the cost is not going to be a deterrent for me, but getting the right knowledge to do this is going to be more important. Once I get to know what needed to be known and how to go about things, then I'll say, I need to get this from India, then I get this from Italy and so on, because now I'm working on a budget. But for this, what I've simply done is I've taken a person, put it aside, and said, by the time I finish to do the tractor, I'm prepared to spend up to $30,000 on this project, including all these little gadgets. So I know it does not make sense, but for an accountant to be talking like that. But I think if I say this item is expensive, I'm not buying it, when I do not have many alternatives to look at, then it will slow me down in acquiring the knowledge I need to acquire.
Agree.
Okay, guys, I gotta go scoot to my my job.
And don't forget to save your chat window again, because Al posted another link in there. the one for Colin.
All right.
See you guys. Have a great weekend.
It's great seeing everyone. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.